up, Rad Potential YouTube, and welcome to today's video. We're fixing to load up the green RX8 because the old RX7 didn't get done in time, and we're gonna go tear up some super high horsepower, super fancy GT cars in our little 140 horsepower RX8. We're headed up to Bowling Green, Kentucky to run at National Corvette Museum Motorsports Park, which if you've never been there, if you've never heard of it, is a super long, super complex, tons of fun elevation. It's very hard to remember or very easy to forget where you are on the track. It's a fairly complex track to drive with. The RX8's personal best new PB after the weekend is a 2-minute and 28.7 second lap, which is for a 150 wheel horsepower car. That's pretty dang quick. That is not the most fulfilling, best epic thing that happened at the track this weekend. I did improve my lap time, but the most important thing was my best friend Calvin and his dad brought down their Shinka RX8, which they had just put together in the past couple weeks, couple months. Fresh, rebuilt engine, good shocks and springs, a new set of tires, and a decent set of brake pads. And they drove this thing all the way down from Indiana so that they could take a crack at becoming a novice track day driver. One of the things that I've been pushing them to do for so long, and they've had muscle cars, Camaros, I guess really just Camaros. Matt used to have a Charger. Calvin's got a Chevelle. They've got all these super awesome hot rods. They're epic car people. They just know everything about a whole bunch of cars. They appreciate all sorts of cars, but they've never taken one of their own cars to the track, and they've never driven on the track by themselves. Now they've went out and done the rent your supercar, drive around and stuff, but that's just more like, let me get to the straight stretch and floor it in my Ferrari 488 so I can say I went 150 miles an hour. Precision driving is a totally different experience. So fortunately, running with Binge Track days up there, Drew, who runs the show, he's a super awesome guy to work with, and we were able to get Matt, who the car really wasn't, their RX8 wasn't really set up or prepared well in advance for this event. They kind of got everything sorted out a few days before, which we all kind of do, but Matt hadn't registered. So I had registered Calvin a while back whenever I registered for the event in hopes of driving this. Unfortunately, a couple people didn't show up. Matt was able to slide into the novice class with Calvin, and they both went off on track and had a blast of a time. It was probably one of the most fulfilling things that I've done with cars in a long time, was to see those two guys who'd never driven on track before, and it's overwhelming. Calvin, fortunately, got a ride along with me at the first session of the day, so he kind of saw the track a little bit and understood a little bit of what driving at the limit is, especially in the Green Machine RX8. It gets down, so much grip. But it was so fulfilling to see both of them go out with their instructor, learn the track, be overwhelmed by track driving, because as a novice driver, you do not need to have a fully prepped race car as a novice driver your first track day. Your first track day, unless you've spent hours and hours and hours on a simulator, hours and hours and hours studying the track, you raced go-karts your whole life or something like that, when you get out on a track for the first time, it is fairly overwhelming if you're not in the mindset of precision driving, right? Those guys are going out there trying to survive, whereas I'm going out there having done this, hundreds of laps at NCM. I'm trying to find that 1/10 of a second, right? It's a totally different mindset. And it was so fulfilling after their first, second, third sessions at the end of the day for them to come back, big smiles on their face. As you can see, Calvin ripping around the track in their RX8, but big smiles on their face and talking about the racing line, what corners were challenging to them, talking about how the purple car compared to the green car, because ultimately, all the suspension stuff and tires and brakes that I had on my car, yeah, it cornered like it's on rails, and it always will. It's an RX8. They're fantastic cars. But that stock RX8 was plenty capable for both of them as a novice driver, and they both had a blast of a time. And they told me mine was slow in a straight line compared to theirs, but I just have a junkyard engine in my car, and they have that freshly rebuilt one. So we'll have to drag race them at some point and see what goes. But mine shot bigger flames. This thing still weighs down one heck of a lap in my new personal best at NCM. So let's take a lap around the track in the RX8. Y'all get to see me chase down this little 718 Speedster Porsche. My buddy Perry, his dad's ripping this thing in the advanced class, and I was stoked to be able to drive in the advanced class. I learned a ton driving with those experienced guys, and I super appreciate being able to run that class, being one of the slower cars in it.
this RX8 as much as I say I don't love it. And it needs a bucket seat really bad. It feels good to just get out here and go full shred in this thing. Oh, that ought to be some pretty good laps. Car's running good. Oil temps 240. That renewable lubricants racing oil doing its job. That big radiator doing its job. Had a little bit of some misfires earlier, but we filled it up with fuel and it's running good, so it could have just been some bad gas. But this thing is just heating it up, boys. Heating it up. Heating it up. Feels good to get a good session. It's been cold, and I'm just stoked Calvin's out here driving. Calvin and Matt, they're having a good day. The Shinka's doing well. And this thing is shredding out here. Woo! Freaking earned that. I may have to go talk to Mr. Fortney in that Porsche up there. I went to college with his son, Perry. Because I was keeping up with that Porsche. Shoo! Man, my shoulders are wore out. This thing needs a seat bad.
Now that you've seen what a little $6,000 tired old 13B RX8 can do on the track, let me tell you guys, that was one of the most fun sessions that I have ever had in that car on the track. That was the one session I drove by myself for the whole day. The next session after that, my dad went for a ride with me, which was super cool. He used to co-drive for me or co-drove for me to events in my rally car. And we got in the car, he was like, "Do you want me to read you stage notes when we're going around the corners?" And I was like, "No, Dad, I really just want you to sit over there, not say anything. I know the track, just hold on. And whenever I say I'm going to hit the brakes, I'm hitting the brakes, because this is going to be about the hardest braking that you've ever felt." And then in the last session, Justin rode along with me. And one of the coolest things, and this is why I hope that we get Justin some more experience as far as just on paper. He's a fantastic driver, but you've got to really like hit all your marks in driving, like have X many track days or X amount of experience before they'll let you into intermediate and even the advanced classes. So we get Justin up to the advanced class, or maybe I'll go down to intermediate to do a little bit, but in the advanced class, you're out to have a passenger. Justin rode with me, and he learned a ton just riding with me for one session, right? There's different lines that I take than he does, and his E46 M3, like that car is no slouch. An S54 E46 M3 can run a 2:10s lap time at NCM, so a whole 15 seconds faster, 19 seconds faster than his time, 17, 18 seconds faster than my time at that track. And it's crazy for him to ride along in the slow RX8 where, I'm showing him where I'm aiming and pointing and driving and getting back on throttle and braking and how much later or how much more speed I'm carrying through corners. And then when he went out for his last session, he was running, 230s. And then he went out for his last session, runs a 229. And that's just from being able to have that build off of each other and learn while we're all at the track. And that's one example between Justin and I, but to have seen Matt and Calvin in the novice class talking the same stuff, improving their times, going out there and being like, "Hey, I'm going to lead for a little while. I'll let you pass. You lead for a while." And Calvin kind of helping Matt around some of the corners and whatnot. And in addition to just like my buddy Jacob and Matt and Paul and all these other guys that we meet at the track, they drive totally different cars. We might approach a corner completely differently, but being able to sit down in the pits and analyze our laps, that's just something that you don't get that unless you work with these guys on a team professionally, meaning like say you're an engineer or you're in marketing or your business or something like that, right? You don't get this analytical, hypersensitive view of an action that you're doing in cars when you just go to a car show. If you go to a drag strip, yeah, you're going to have guys talking about where can they shave weight, tire pressures, different stuff to make it stick and go faster. And I love going down these critical thinking paths with other people and getting different people's opinions. Maybe you do things two totally different ways, but, a similar example, Justin running 230s in his M3, Cartmill running 230s in his Audi S4 turbo deal, and they're both right there ripping the same lap time, but one guy might be flying through the corners, the other guy might be flying down the straightaways, and all in all, you've accomplished the same thing, but you get to it two different ways. And I love being able to experience that in addition to just sharing the different ways of doing things. I think that something that we lack in society, interactions, relationships is being able to have these critical thinking, brainstorming, get-togethers, planning between your friends where you can disagree, do things differently, and you still come out with the same result, the same view. You're still good friends. You still are challenging each other on the track. And I just love being able to not only facilitate that experience for guys like Matt and Calvin, but also just getting more people to the track, more people driving their cars. And don't be afraid to take your stock car out there. Put some brake pads on it. Make sure you don't have the cheapest tires you could ever buy, and go out there and have some fun. Learn how to be humble, be a novice, be a beginner at something. Go out there and just take it all in and enjoy motorsports, because that's what we're all here for. So with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I know this was a little bit different of a video than what you probably expected, going to the track, driving around, etc., etc., all the windy pit noise and cars and running and whatever. But I promise I'd have filmed a bunch in the pits, but my buddy Josh with his peripheral port Mazda Miata, 13B peripheral port swapped Mazda Miata, was out there revving his crap in the pits, and it was so loud and the camera mics were all blown out. No, I'm just kidding. But his car did sound epic. You should definitely go check out his build. I'll link his channel up here, Castle Off Speed. And I'm stoked too to thank guys like him who are advanced drivers that volunteer to be instructors to help out guys like Calvin and Matt. Because with that transition of knowledge, I know this would be possible. So with that, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know it was a little bit different. If you want to learn about rotary engines, you want to follow along with the RX8 right here, this 1979 single turbo track monster death trap, completely going to destroy the RX8 around NCM. Subscribe to the channel. If you want to learn more about rotary engines, go check out the other videos on the channel. If you got questions, drop them in the comments below. If you want to support the channel or you have more detailed questions or you need to get a hold of me, go check out the Patreon. Super cool group of guys over there. They ask questions. I make videos to answer the questions. And those videos are very detailed, very pointed, trying to figure out specific issues versus the broad strokes that we upload here. So with that, thank you so much for watching. Keep it rad, and we'll see you in the next one. It's like Ricky Bobby, what do I do with my hands?